Dr. Amina here. I hope you all are doing well, and today I am going to give you an idea of what diabetes, well, I guess I gave it away, but basically what excess sugar consumption can ultimately do to you, right? And it essentially has to do with you not being free and maybe even losing your life prematurely. So a lot of times I talk about the more immediate effects like sluggishness, achiness, and some people, there are a variety of symptoms people can have, even things like reflux, like that heartburn, skin problems, etc., right? But ultimately what happens is that over time, and this is over a period of years and even decades, you have an accumulation of all the toxic effects of too much sugar, right? Too much sugar consumption, right? So diabetes is obvious, but leading up to diabetes, you can have the pre-diabetes and things that go with that for maybe a decade or more prior to the actual onset of diabetes. And then ultimately, once you do get diabetes, then you start having really now the serious issues. And just to give you an example how things can evolve, right? And this is based on literally what I see just about every day. So one scenario, let's take a scenario. So you're diabetic, diagnosed with diabetes maybe 20 years ago, but prior to that probably had pre-diabetes for maybe 5 up to 10 years, depending on, how your body handled it. So you're diabetic. Then after 20 years, which is maybe by the time you're 60 or 50, depending, right? You have your first serious event, which is basically you go blind or lose significant vision in one eye. And that, in the case I'm thinking about, could be because you had a bleeding, a sudden bleed into the back of the eye because the vessels at the back of the eye were damaged from the effects of diabetes, right? So you're pretty much blind in one eye, right? So now you need assistance, right? You're not independent. So you're not totally free because you have to be dependent on others to help you. Oftentimes, even though you have vision in the other eye, you just have difficulty being efficient with driving and so on, so you need assistance with that, right? So you go on, you're doing okay, right? But then eventually, again, because you have that already permanent damage to the blood vessels, you succumb to a stroke. Maybe you had an acute issue, like maybe you suffered from, you had a severe case of pneumonia or some other stressful event, maybe even a surgery. You needed surgery for maybe to open blood vessels or whatever. And because of the stress of that acute issue, whether it be surgery or a pneumonia or so, then you suffered a stroke because it was so much stress on the body. So now you've had a stroke, you're weak on one side, but you do physical therapy and you regain quite a bit of your strength. So you can actually walk around with not much assistance, right? But still, you're not doing the best right now. Of course, you're in your golden years, you're in your 60s, maybe approaching 70, and this is a time where you're supposed to be able to enjoy your life. You worked hard for all your years, all the decades leading up to your 60s, and you're now supposed to be enjoying your life, and you're supposed to be basically contributing to society, kind of imparting what you have learned over the decades of your life to the younger ones. But now you're blind in one eye and then you had a mild stroke. So you're just not fully functional, right? Now, a lot of people, they can still function, they can still drive, they can still enjoy simple pleasures, food, movies, little things like that, right? But after working so hard, right, and helping so many people in your earlier years coming up, you probably deserve to have better, like a fuller life. Anyway, you continue on, right, after the stroke, but your family is busy and you kind of, in this society where now we don't have the close-knit families like before, extended families where you can have assistance from an extended family. People move away, so your children live far away. Maybe you don't have a spouse or your spouse passed away, and so you're just sort of fending for yourself. And even though you're diabetic and you've been diabetic for a few decades, you never really got control of that diet as a diabetic, and so unfortunately you depended on medications, because that's what we kind of preach a lot, right? Generally speaking, the medical system, take your medication and you should be fine, right? And so you kind of fall into that trap where you feel like, okay, I'm taking my medicine, so I should be fine, I'm doing it how the doctor says. And so you continue to eat and drink, whatever, and so your diabetes still remains totally out of control. You kind of go on okay for a few more years, right? But then suddenly you realize that, oh, my foot is draining, right? And you try to doctor it a little, but then it gets worse. And then one day you smell something bad and you realize, oh my goodness, my toe is sore, it looks black, what's going on, right? And so you go to the doctor and you realize, oops, your circulation is so poor to your foot that you need a part of your foot amputated, right? So really, again, you're in your 60s, you're supposed to be in your prime of life, enjoying your life, but you just have multiple, every year, every 2 years, it's just another event after the next, right? And so now you are faced with surgery, you're going to have part of your foot amputated. How can you help yourself now? You're starting to get frail, you're starting to get run down, right? Your family tries their best to help you, but again, because of how society is now, people have 1 job, 2 jobs, people live far away, and so you just cannot get that assistance you need. So you continue to struggle on your own, you try your best to take care of yourself. It's hard for you to cook, so you don't eat the right things really, you're still depending on your medicines, and things just go down and down. You're not even 70 yet, and ultimately you end up in a nursing home, right? How good are these nursing homes? Basically, as hard as it might sound, you get as much as you pay for. So of course there are high, like anything in life, right? Whether you want to believe it or not, there's a higher end and there's a lower end. So the higher end, of course, you pay thousands of dollars, and of course it's like, a hotel, 5-star hotel. But then if you don't have those funds, which most people would not, so you have to depend on one of those that's supported, I guess, by the government, essentially Medicare, Medicaid, whatever, right? Again, you get what you pay for. You go to a nursing home and, you're just there, and you get depressed because you don't have your family coming to see you, and then you end up with a bed sore, right? Bad news. The bed sore gets infected, it gets worse, you get more depressed, and it's just downhill. You're still diabetic, your diabetes is still not really well controlled because maybe you just never got a handle of it when it was first diagnosed, just didn't gain an appreciation for exactly what is involved in diabetes care. You think, take your medicines and don't worry about anything else, right? Of course, it has to do, like majority of management has to do with how you eat, right? And so on. This just goes on, and in your golden years you just suffer from one issue after the next, and you just go down, right? But you don't die, because it's really not easy it's actually hard to die, and I know that sounds harsh, but it's not like you're gonna drop dead. You're gonna live, but you're gonna live for 10 years, 20 years, but with one problem after the next. So it's just decreasing quality of life, worse and worse every year. You're getting a little more and more despondent, more and more depressed, right? And then you have this bed sore, and you're depending on the nursing home people to take care of you. But of course they, it's a job. Of course, they're good nurses, aides, and so on, right? But as with anything, there are good and there are bad ones, right? So there are some who, it's a job, 8 to 5 or whatever, 7 to 7, and it's just a paycheck, right? So you're dependent on the system, you have no freedom, right? And then you have no quality of life, and this is how you exist basically in your the last 5, 10, 15 years of your life, right? And it's hard to envision that, like when you're young, when you're like 30 and 40, and even 50, you still feel pretty good. You can put on your nice clothes, you can go out, you have a nice car, you can drive and so on. But microscopically, right, under the skin, all this little damage bit by bit is going on, slowly. All this microscopic thing, it is bit by bit, slowly and steadily over years and decades. And like I've said before, when the bottom falls out, it falls out. Everything starts breaking down, right? It can happen very quickly for some, but in most cases, it's a slow, steady decline, slow, steady decrease in quality of life, slow, steady decrease in, your freedom to do whatever, your freedom to contribute to, and ability to contribute to society. And, that's really not the kind of life that any of us deserve, especially, you work so hard, you help so many people, and this is I see, it's not just like people might think, oh, it's the lowest socioeconomic group, or less educated or whatever, we see these issues in all stratas of society. Okay, professionals. Engineer, had an engineer once, his foot, almost lost his foot. I don't know if he still has his foot. We have nurses, we have doctors, you know, anybody, right? All of us are at risk, right? If we don't pay attention, if we don't take our health into our own hands, right? Especially if we know that we are at risk for any of these chronic diseases, then we are at definite risk for having a poor quality of life towards the last, you know, in the last third or quarter years of left of our life, quarter duration, like the end of our life, towards the last few years of our life, right? And if you don't want to have that suffering, right, which is real, right, think about where, like, the trajectory of your health, generally speaking, and of what you, like, how you eat, like the quality of your eating, the quality of your lifestyle, you know, exercise, just in general, you would know, right? Like, everybody knows, like, when there's room for improvement. So think about how you can improve. Think about what your sugar intake is like. Think about whether or not you actually have a family history of diabetes or pre-diabetes or just metabolic problems, and think about what you can do yourself right now, right, to squash your risk for a miserable life later on, right? And just know that it's not necessarily all about pills. Yes, we have pills to help us, but those are supposed to be an adjunct. The main thing is actually supposed to be you modifying, optimizing your diet, especially, and then of course your lifestyle. Once you optimize your diet, I think sugar, like I always say, is the lowest hanging fruit, and like it's like the biggest toxin when it comes to our diet. Sugar, refined starches, of course, they're just the same as sugar, but just in a more, you know, like a not sweet to taste form. But see how you can cut down on the refined things, the sweet things, the processed foods, right? And slowly, if not overnight, you know, because that's harder, slowly optimize, seek out information, seek out people who can help you. It is hard, otherwise everybody would do it, right? So hey, find somebody, a coach, whatever, just somebody who you feel comfortable with, who can help hold your hand through a 2 to 3 month period or so, where you can make these hard changes, get them ingrained into like a new lifestyle, so that you can be 60, 70, 80, 90 years and you are living life to the fullest. You have a sharp mind, so you can impart all that knowledge that you have acquired for your first several decades of life, and just have a good life, right? So I just want to give you all an idea, as much as you can see it now, you don't feel it, but of what lies ahead for you, right? Which is not so good if you don't make the hard changes now. And as usual, share this with somebody who you think might benefit from hearing this. And thanks for watching, and all the best in your journey to just optimizing, having a good life. Because hey, why be alive if we can't enjoy our lives and contribute like meaningfully to society? Like, to me, there's not much point. Okay, so have a good one, and thanks for watching. Omo Ijani. Bye.